Welcome to Legacy Blueprint, Planet Forward, the podcast where top thought leaders in law, finance, and wealth planning come together to guide your future. Hosted by distinguished estate planning attorney Mike Bascom, each episode highlights industry experts who bring clarity, innovation, and proven strategies to the table. Because building a legacy isn't a solo act, it's the result of a team of professionals working in harmony. Join us weekly as we showcase the leaders shaping tomorrow and give you the tools to plan with confidence today.
All right, today we're joined by Lee Henry, a Georgia-based business sales expert who helps owners maximize the value of their companies through diligence and skilled negotiation. With a background that spans farming, trades, and entrepreneurship, Lee brings a grounded perspective on what it takes to secure the best possible outcome when it's time to sell. We'd like to welcome Lee Henry to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike.
Glad to have you with us. Lee, your story is interesting. You grew up on a dairy farm and worked across lots of different trades. It's kind of fascinating. How did that upbringing shape your work ethic and your approach to business today?
Well, I think one thing is, a dairy farm, it's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So you've got to be working all the time. And from the time I was 4 years old, I had a job. My job when I was four was just watering the calves, putting a water hose around. But I had a job. So I think it taught me a lot about hard work and just, making sure that you always get the job done, no matter what it takes. But another thing that everybody laughs at me about is whenever we make a mistake, I tell them, I was like, all right, you just got shocked. Because in my mind, it's like we had electric fences running around the dairy farm. And if you get shocked one time, that's okay. You made a mistake. If you get shocked twice, you're an idiot. So my thing is, if you make a mistake, it's okay. But if you do it twice, you're an idiot making the same mistake. And I kind of use that in business all the time. And then I was real fortunate whenever we sold the dairy. Um, and then afterwards, I had the opportunity to work in HVAC, electric, building fences, lawn care, pressure washing, all sorts of stuff. And kind of wanted to have experience and just knowing how to do all that kind of stuff. And it kind of allowed me now to understand how those businesses work, what's realistic, what's not realistic, and how I would like to, if I was buying the business, how I would, what I would want in the business to buy. So that's kind of how it shapes me, I guess.
That's interesting. Having that varied experience gives you an insider look on what the business should actually look like. That's more than what a lot of business brokers have. So that's very interesting. Now, I know you got a big family as well. You got the four kids, including little princess there. She sounds
That's
like
right.
she runs the house. How does
She
being
definitely does.
how does being a husband and father influence the way you think about legacy and the clients you serve?
Well, so for me, I know that myself personally, I want to leave something. One, I want my kids to be able to walk into a business whenever they get older and be able to take it over. But I also want them to not have the trust fund baby status where they've never had to work hard. So to me, I feel like whenever I'm working with a family and their business, I think that I'm working for hopefully their children's 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 children. And I try to look at it from that angle, and that's how I treat my business, that I feel like I'm working for my children's 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 children to be able to have a great legacy and do the same for them.
Pretty nice time horizon or a long
Yeah.
view to be taken there. That's great.
Well,
Now,
the Bible says that a man's blessed if he leaves an inheritance for his children's children's children. So that's kind of how I feel like biblically that's what I'm supposed to do.
well, that's an awesome way to look at it. And we tend to sometimes be in a short-term world, so having a long-term view is admirable.
Thank you.
Your company, you've said your company consistently performs above market in business sales. What are some of the key factors that set your approach apart from others that are in the industry?
One, I think our laser focused dedication to diligence and trying to figure out what the problems are with the business and see what we can do to fix it. I know a lot of people focus on, well, how can we drive revenue? How can we drive profit? We focus more on driving um, multiples of value. So we focus a lot on that. And then we just try to figure out, you know, what's hurting the business now? How can we fix it? What can be done? What in addition to what's there with the resources that we have with the business, what can we change to or make it better? Is kind of how we're able to do that. Can't give you all of our secret sauce formula, but that's pretty much what we do.
That's very good. One of the things that I know that you emphasize is thorough sell side diligence. I've not seen that phrase before, but when you talk about thorough sell side diligence, can you walk us through what that looks like and why it matters so much for business owners that are preparing to sell?
Well, one thing, whenever you do sell a business on the back end, whenever you do the purchase agreement and the buyer is doing their diligence, they're going to peel the onion all the way back. So on one side, we don't want the seller to have seller fatigue, so we want to get all that done on the front end.
Hmm.
On the other side, we can find all the red flags with the business, and buyers will have a lot more confidence in the business if we're able to discover, everything in the business. We've done audits on the business from, financial, accounting, tax, insurance. I mean, the whole nine yards. We've gone through the entire thing to find out everything there. And I'm giving you an example. We had a of whenever it doesn't work out, or why, I don't know how to phrase this, but the downside of not doing that. We had a private equity group, excuse me, engage us to find a mechanical contracting business. And we were wanting to be in the 7.5 to 10 million EBITDA range for the business. And we found one. They were doing about 9.7 million EBITDA, remember, if I can remember correctly. And we had authorization to go up to 10x on the business
Mhm.
for offers. Obviously, we was going to have to put it in front of them, our buyers, with but that was where we were going to be. Um, so we found that business. They were everything about it looked beautiful. So I went and asked the banker, um, I need some information on the business. I want to know, how much new construction is there? How much service work is there? I had a litany of questions for the banker. It's like, well, we can't give you that. I was like, well, how can we make a decision if we can't? Well, we don't have that information, but we
Mhm.
have a great data room. I was like, okay, well, can we get access to the data room so that we can, peel the onion back? Well, we'll give you access with an LOI. Well, I told him, I was like, well, that if we submit an LOI, we will not be able to stand by the offer that we give you. And he was like, well, why do you say that? Well, I don't know anything about the business, so I can't make an informed offer. And we kind of had a feeling that the majority of the business was new construction for that deal. So if we would have went in at a 10x multiple of 97 million, and then we had to scale it back to a 2 or 3 time multiple, and we wouldn't have even wanted the business if it was majority new construction. But that just lets what buyers think. That's the type of stuff that they want to know about. It gives them confidence. And then on the other side of that, like in that example, I told the guy we are 100% going to retrade this deal. So we're going to submit an LOI, we're going to do diligence, and then we're going to come back with a completely different offer. If you do things the right way, you can minimize those retrades. So there's some instances where you just can't. So if EBITDA turns around or revenue goes south, we can't help that. But from a diligence standpoint, we can 100% prevent a lot of that if from the diligence side, not a revenue EBITDA side. So that's why it's important.
I think it's a really smart move. You used a phrase that a lot of people are not familiar with. I think you said seller fatigue.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly describe what you mean by seller fatigue?
Well, the sales process is a long, daunting process. So I know, like for us, our diligence packet, I mean, we're starting from scratch. So we need to know everything about your insurance, all your employees, taxes, finances, inventory, like everything. So there's probably a couple hundred items on our diligence checklist, and then we're sending questionnaires. So they're going to probably get on a. We'll probably end up asking anywhere from 500 to 700 questions of the business owner,
Mhm.
and that's just tiring. There's a lot of emotion that goes on with it.
Mhm.
Everybody gets excited about selling, and then they realize, well, man, I've worked my entire life for this thing, or my granddaddy gave it to me, or my daddy gave it to me, and so there's those emotions involved with it. And so it's an emotional roller coaster. We go through LOYs. They talk to the buyers. The buyers, everybody loves the buyers at first. Then we get into nitty gritty negotiations, and the negotiations take a long time. And so there's just a lot to it. It's a long process. And I mean, it's a marathon. Even us, we get fatigued on a deal as we're like, geez, Louise, I can't believe they're asking for this too, or we thought we had this, and we end up a deal is like a cat. It's got 9 lives. It's going to die several times before we actually get it to the finish line. So, I mean, there's just a lot of emotions, a lot going on. Everybody gets tired. So the seller gets tired, the buyer gets tired, we get tired, the attorneys get tired, everybody gets tired, and everybody at the end, everybody's kind of like a wore out old dog that's been running all day. And they're like, let's just get to the end.
So those questions are going to get asked, it sounds like. So by being proactive, having the seller preempt those questions by getting that material together and not waiting until the buyer asks for it, it seems like that's what wears you out is when the buyer keeps coming back and asking for just more information, more information, more information. And on the front side, if we can produce that information for them, then it's going to seem less tiring.
Yeah, it will. It's still going to be a tiring deal, and the other side of that is a strategy of a buyer. I mean,
Mhm.
one of their strategies is to wear the seller out, and we prepare them for that on the front end. Hey, these buyers want to wear you out, so you agree to a deal that you may not normally agree to, and with that, we surround our sellers with what we call a transaction team. So we want their general counsel, we got a M&A attorney, their CPA, their financial advisor, and us talking with the seller the whole time and telling them, I tell them, the gazelle that gets out of the herd is the one that gets killed by the lion. We want
Yeah.
to stay with the herd, and he won't get killed by the lion. And that kind of keeps them in check a little bit where they don't get taken advantage of or lambasted or wore out and agree to something that they don't want to. We're sitting there telling them, no, no, no. We got a whole team telling them, don't do this or do this or you should, whatever.
No,
So we
safe.
try to keep our sellers ultra protected with that.
It's nice having the safety that's there. I know negotiation plays a huge part in your work. What are some strategies you use to ensure that sellers get the best possible outcome, not just financially, but in terms of overall deal structure?
One thing that I believe negotiation takes place in a couple different things. In our packets, like our deal packages that we put together, we kind of go ahead and outline some baseline terms that we're like, all right, these are line in the sand terms right here. So if you don't agree with it, hit the road. And then when we start negotiating LOIs, we want to negotiate multiple offers. An LOI is a letter of intent. So it's a buyer that has said, we would like to buy your company. LOI is non binding, but we take the position and we coach our transaction team and our sellers to take the position that the LOI sets the precedence for our purchase agreement. So anything and everything that we can negotiate in the LOI, we need to negotiate in the LOI. We also have leverage. So the buyer doesn't have anything on us. They're trying to get the deal as bad as we're trying to sell the deal. They're in the LOI phase, and that's really the last time we have some real leverage over the buyer is at the LOI. So we want to negotiate everything there. So we're going to take our time, and we might negotiate an LOI for 2 or 3 months.
Mm.
And a lot of people are like, well, why do you do that? Because we want everything. I mean, we want the best terms possible in that even though it's non-binding, once we get to the purchase agreement, everything that we agreed to in the LOI has to go into the purchase agreement.
Mm.
So it sets up our purchase agreement to be really favorable to us. And then, there a lot of sellers do not understand what the cost of a transaction is outside of commission and fees for the professionals. But there's things like directors and officers insurance, or reps and warranty holdbacks, or reps and warranty insurance, and there's all sorts of which can translate to millions of extra dollars
Mm.
in a deal. Or a lot of people get hung up on working capital calculations and all that kind of stuff. And we negotiate all of that in the LOI. The last deal that we closed, we ended up saving, I think, about 1.5 million in insurance premiums that we got the buyer to pay it instead of our seller.
Mm.
We got our seller to walk away with all the cash that they had in the company. We got a credit. The buyer didn't want to credit us um, for some of our inventory, excess inventory, but fortunately, we had laid out exactly how we wanted working capital and made them agree to how we wanted working capital calculated in the LOI. So they had to stick to it. They wanted to argue against it, but we had them. And so ultimately, we ended up bringing the seller total like an additional 4.5, maybe 5 million that
Mm.
they would have had just been lost to them otherwise. So that was pretty cool.
I like that, setting the table early and pre-planning or pre-negotiating while you still have a little bit of leverage. Sounds like it's a key point in making sure those negotiations work. So very nice. More of those things you get settled while you still have leverage, the better. I
Sure.
know a lot of our business owners see their companies as their life's work. How do you balance the emotional side of selling with the financial and practical realities for business owners?
Man, that's a tough one. Um, that I mean, we got to get a. I have a hard time with that one. You know, almost every deal that we do, especially something like that, almost try to talk the seller out of doing the deal.
Mhm.
Um, and I make them sell me on why they want to do it. And
Mhm.
then once we do that, then it kind of helps the seller always go back to why they're wanting to do what they're doing. So that's kind of, I'm not the best person in the world when it comes to emotions, but that's kind of how I approach it.
I
I
know
wish I
when
was better, but that's how.
Well, I know when we talk with business owners and we say to them, "Hey, when are you going to sell your business?" It's always, well, in 5 to 7 years. and we look at the spouse, and the spouse kind of shrugs their shoulders, and then we see him again in 5 to 7 years. We go, hey, when are you going to sell the business? Like, 5 to 7 years. It seems like it keeps getting kicked down the alley. So getting the spouses in buy-in can be very critical, and it is a kind of like selling their baby almost. Some of these people, when they decide, hey, we're going to sell the business, it can be very traumatic. And having activities to do and know what the other side of no longer working is going to look like can be very emotional.
Yeah, well, that's where you come in with the estate planning stuff too, to kind of help them with that.
We enjoy doing that side. I know for many small and mid-sized business owners that are listening, can you tell us what the number one mistake is that you see for people when they're preparing or not preparing to sell their company?
Um, I would think knowing their numbers, and what I mean by that is, um, I can't tell you how many people. I've got one business just in mind that this was a smaller deal, but I was talking to this guy and I was like, "Well, man, how much do you think that you need here?" We're trying to gauge how much income that he was going to need after he sold the business. I only need $25,000 a year. I was like, "You're crazy. That's all I need." And I was like, "How in the world did you come up with that number?" Well, that's all I take. And I said, "Well, let's walk outside real quick." So we got up from my office and walked outside, and I was like, "What kind of truck are you driving?" It's a brand new F-250. Well, how
Hmm.
much did that truck cost? Truck cost $90,000. How often do you get a new truck? About every 2 or 3 years.
Hmm.
I was like, "Well, aren't you going to want a new truck?" Well, the business pays for that. Well, if you sell it, the business isn't paying for it. Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, didn't you tell me you have a house down in Panacea, Florida? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, how are you going to pay for all that? Well, the business pays for it. And a lot of it was an extreme example, but a lot of people don't understand how much they take out of their business and how much their business pays for their lifestyle. So, you know, my thing is, and we try to get business owners to do this, and we can help them with. We have an accounting team that runs through all their numbers, but get a clear understanding of what your lifestyle requires. So, I can't tell you how many times we go through the business and, oh, we're taking out $250,000 a year. Well, the wife's over there taking another 200 to
Hmm.
pay for her credit card.
Hmm.
So you're taking 450, 500,000 a year. Um, so understanding those numbers, understanding what true needs are, understanding, what your resources now, plus the net proceeds of your business. A lot of people get hung up on the top line, sell the business. Well, I'm going to get $10 million from a business. No, you're not. You've got taxes, you've got fees, you've got, there could be a whole host of things in there. You need to have a better gauge of what that is. And then what crazy thing are you going to do after you sell the business? Because I know a lot of people would be like, well, I just sold a business for $10 million. We're going to go buy 4 RVs and a beach house and a mountain house and a this house and a that house and this vacation. We need to have a realistic financial plan and get with your financial advisor to do so, because the last thing that I want to do is sell your business and then you end up being a greeter at Walmart 10 years down the road. So that,
Yeah.
that we those are the biggest mistakes I see business owners do, not knowing their true numbers for themselves.
Yeah, and especially if you've got family working in the business as well, you probably tend to underestimate because your son-in-law or your daughter or your wife or whomever may be working in the business, but it's one of those soft positions that when you sell it, they're no longer going to have a job.
That's right.
Yeah, gotta watch out for that. Lee, when you're working with business owners who are considering selling, what's the single biggest financial planning challenge you see them struggle with, and how does that impact the outcome of the sale?
I think the thing I just said about understanding the net proceeds from the sale,
Hmm.
um, a lot of whenever almost everybody we deal with, well, they're thinking, well, we're going to get 10 million or 15 million or 20 million or 50 million or whatever. and it's not going to be that. And then the other challenge that I see is they see their neighbor down the road that got, or somewhere else, that got this big multiple for their business, and they talk to us, and we're like, well, we think you're going to get this right here, or whatever. Well, Johnny got that right there. Well, there was something different about his business. I can
Mhm.
promise you, we can fix it and get you there, but your business isn't worth that now. So having a good understanding of what their business is worth, and understanding that it doesn't matter what type of business you have, there's some type of metric that buyers look at for your specific business, and they're going to base their valuations on that metric. And we got to make it attractive for buyers to pay that additional multiple.
It's interesting because you've been in this industry so long, you've seen so many different types of businesses sell. You can spot when there's an improper multiple being used. Oftentimes people have an unrealistic expectation. They may have heard a rule of thumb multiple is what they should be getting, and it's only because you know the business or that industry you can say, well, this would be a more appropriate multiple to be using for that. So,
Well, I'm going to use an HVAC company as an
mhm,
example here. You can take an HVAC company that's doing $1 million EBITDA.
mhm,
One is doing $1 million EBITDA on new construction. One is doing $1 million EBITDA in service work with maintenance contracts, for example. The $1 million EBITDA with new construction, I don't have a single buyer that will pay for that business.
mhm.
I got a gazillion for the other
Yeah.
So they have the same numbers. They're both HVACs. One's worth a lot, one's worth nothing. So that's where a lot of people don't quite understand differences there.
Well, and experience matters in your industry.
That's right.
So, at what stage should a business owner start thinking about the eventual sale of the company if they're trying to maximize value?
I personally think the day they open the doors, you know, go ahead and be getting your business situated, and think about that, because you are 100% going to exit your business. You're either going to exit your business through a sale, you're going to exit your business through death or disability. It's going
Mhm.
to go into bankruptcy. Somehow, some way, you are 100% going to exit your business. Go ahead and start planning early on how you want to exit your business and get it set up the right way.
I think that's very sound. Very sound. Now, I know you've worked across lots of different trades and industries before you started focusing on doing business sales and business broker. So, how do you feel like that hands-on experience has given you an edge when you're advising entrepreneurs today?
One, I feel like I haven't been in the owner's shoes on a lot of those businesses, but just seeing how those businesses operate, and kind of, you take somebody on Wall Street that's never worked as an electrician or
Mhm.
done any work as an HVAC guy or put fences up, and they're sitting there giving you advice on what you should do, and you're like, man, that sounds great on paper, but that's not going to work in real life.
Mm.
We're able to actually give advice that works not only on paper but in real life. So it's executable and reasonable.
That sounds very sound. Selling a business is often part of someone's financial and family legacy. What advice do you give for owners who want to sell the business to support not just their retirement, but also the next generation and the next generation, as you talked about previously?
Start planning early. I believe almost any business. I don't know how to articulate this, but I believe a lot of people um, run their businesses as, well, this is just something I need to do to make a living. I don't know how to phrase that any other way than that. If they would start running their business with purpose, like, we're trying to get to this goal, or we're trying to get to that goal, not just, food on the table and all that kind of stuff. Have a purpose, have a plan, execute the purpose and plan, and get that will help them get their business, or find somebody like us that can help get their business to the next level and the next level and the next level to be able to exit, at an 8 or 9 figure, um, range, valuation range.
And we see businesses that have repeatable processes and systems much more valuable than those that just happen to have a great person who comes in and knocks out the business. Someone who's
Yeah,
buying, they're wanting to have that repeatable income stream. I think that's also something that would help, making sure you're maximizing value there as well.
absolutely.
So let's look ahead a little bit. What
Okay.
excites you the most about helping Georgia business owners secure strong exits and build those lasting legacies we're talking about for their families?
Well, I'm glad and excited you asked me that question. So we're in really the entire US, but specifically Georgia. I have a heart, obviously, for Georgia. And growing up on a dairy backwoods in Dobrin, Georgia, population 500 probably. I don't know what the population is now, but not many people. I have a heart for the rural people and rural business. And so one of the things that we've kind of challenged ourselves with here is how do we bring Wall Street values to Main Street businesses? And I'm calling a Main Street business, your small mom and pops that aren't, probably doing less than $1 million a year in profit. Um, so we're doing our first one right now. It's going to be with tire shops. We're putting together a really cool merger, and we're actually about to start looking for some tire shops to do this. We're going to put about 50 of them together. Um, the goal is to get to a $25 million EBITDA multiple. We've got CEO, CFO, all that kind of stuff with the platform. We've put a lot of our own money into this deal.
Mhm.
We've also got a capital partner that's put into this deal. We're about to have several million outlaid on the deal. But with so those tire shops specifically, by themselves, on average, they're getting a 2.25 multiple on the high side. So if they have a $500,000 EBITDA, that business is selling for $1,125,000. With our plan, that business is now selling at a 9.33 multiple.
Mm.
So I'd have to get my calculator out real quick to figure out what that is on the 500. It's a little over $4.5 million.
4.5 million. Mhm.
So we're able to quadruple their value with
Mhm.
this program.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm excited about. We're going to do it for other businesses too. But I think that's going to leave a great legacy for those business. It's going to give them an opportunity that they would have never had before. So that's what I'm pretty excited about. It's pretty cool. It's been about a year and a half in the making. So we've been working on it for a long time. We're hopefully going live in the next 30 to 45 days.
Oh, it sounds exciting. I know you've helped some really big companies as well, in the many hundreds of millions of dollars with their sales, some of the manufacturing companies you've represented as well. This is a
Yeah.
nice
Well,
opportunity.
Well, I feel like all right, so those guys we can do a great job with the big guys,
Mhm.
for sure. And I love working on big guys. I just feel like these small guys, if we can figure out a way, and we think that this is the way, if we can figure out a way for them to be able to add tremendous value for them, we're really excited about that.
I think we're seeing consolidation in a lot of industries like this. So going after the tire shops, I wasn't aware that you were doing that one, but I think it makes a lot of sense. So we're excited to see what blossoms out for you on that one.
Well, we're excited too, and we'll definitely have to we'll definitely be getting with you on some stuff with that too. So we're excited.
Well, Lee, thanks for taking time with us today. It's wonderful to talk to someone who's a business broker, who's got actual experience and your breadth of knowledge there. If someone were to want more information or to get in touch with you, what's the simplest way for them to do that?
They can email me or call me. My email address is lee@goldenshieldbiz.com. My phone number, I gotta look at it real quick. 229-302-5930.
That's fantastic. We'll also put that down in the links at the bottom of the podcast as well. But thank you again for your time. We appreciate you sharing your expertise with us, and good luck on this newest business ventures.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.
That concludes today's episode of Legacy Blueprint, Plan It Forward with Mike Bascom. Each week, we bring you insights from thought leaders across law, finance, and wealth planning. Because building your legacy is never a one-person journey. It takes a team of dedicated professionals working in harmony to turn vision into achievement. If you're ready to take the next step toward your secure future, visit bascomlaw.com or call 77028559493. And don't forget to tune in again next week as we highlight more experts and strategies to help you plan it forward with confidence.